Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 9 2023 NFL predictions. Well, after the horrible week that I had in Week 8, where I just got 4 and 3 or 3 and 4 wins respectively against the spread and straight up, let's just say for the Fanatic this week, he bounced back up very well and put in a week that I am much more proud of and can stand by in terms of my predictions for last week. So against the spread and straight up, after having a 7-2-1 start through the first 10 games of the week, I thought I was having a phenomenal run. The only push that I had was the atrocity of the battle of the big rotted apple of the Jets and Giants, where the Jets ended up winning by 3 points where they shouldn't have, but I digress. But after having a 7-2-1 start through 10 games, the last 5 games I went 0-5 against the spread, and 1-5 against the spread. It was absolutely brutal. The only one I got right was Cincinnati taking them plus 5.5, and they ended up winning outright. But that was just absolutely brutal for my against the spread picks through the 4 o'clock window. Nelson Aguilar screwed up a cover. The Broncos ended up playing their best defensive game of the year against the Chiefs, and the Broncos won as 8.5-point underdogs. I would have got the Seattle pick wrong straight up, but Cleveland, with 2 minutes to go, P.J. Walker throwing that interception at the end basically cost me that pick there. Even though I know at the end of the day, regardless if it was a safety, I was probably going to lose that game against the spread anyway, but still. But that's how close some of these games were against the spread through the 4 and primetime window. Besides Chargers Bears, that's probably the one pick out of all of them that I regret the most. I should have expected Tyson Bagent and the Bears to show up like the Cubs they have been. Not the Chicago ones either, to make a reference. Either, but that was a tough one. But going 7-1 against the spread, I will take that. So 500. So I rebounded from the horrible week I had last week. But straight up though, I rebounded very well. I got the 10-win threshold. I went 11-4 in a 16-game week. Of course, I have Detroit here minus 8.5 tonight, and Detroit straight up. So a 12-4 week, 75%. That is as good a straight up week as you can have with the 4 losses that I talked about earlier. In KC, nobody thought they would lose. Houston, Carolina was a very ugly offensive type game that ended up going Carolina's way. Kudos to them, though, for their first victory of the year. Eddie Pinero kicked a 29-yard field goal to get them the win. And then the other 2 losses that I had, I took the Niners. Tough outing there. And then the other one was Chiefs, Niners. And then I had the Falcons winning, and that was just a all-out dandy performance by Will Levis. I will get to that in a second. But straight up, they're going 11-4. That's really good. So overall, for the year now, through 121 games in 8 weeks, I am now 57-61 with 3 pushes against the spread. And straight up now, I am 74-47. So definitely, I moved up 1.2% straight up. I will gladly take that. Against the spread, I held my own. So I did gain a push. So I could be at least 60-61 if things didn't go out, went my way, and I could be 57-64 if they didn't. So 57-61 with 3 pushes. That equals 48.4% against the spread. And straight up now, I am now 74-47, which equals 61.2% straight up. I will get to my picks in a second, but let me just say we are now, for the next 3 weeks, until the week of Thanksgiving, we are in the bye. We are back in the byes portion of the season, where we're going to have this week the Denver Broncos, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the San Francisco 49ers all on bye this week. So if you have the Broncos defense, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, the Lions defense, Michael Badgley, Will Lutz, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. I can't think of the... Brandon McManus, there we go. Brandon McManus, former Denver kicker. Brandon McManus. Brock Purdy, the Niners defense, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this weekend due to them having a bye week. Alright, so let me get straight into my picks. So this Thursday, when the 3-4 Tennessee Titans travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 4-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. In a bit of an upset here from what I saw this past week and everything going on, especially with the injury to Kenny Pickett and his bruised rib, I am actually going to take the Tennessee Titans here plus 2.5 and the Tennessee Titans straight up. Then the next game, in the biggest game of the international series all year, and a trap that I'm going to fall myself in for the third and final time this year, in my opinion. But in Frankfurt, Germany, what a game the Germans get to witness as the 6-2 Miami Dolphins play Kansas City, and Kansas City is the home team, in Frankfurt, Germany. Once again, the Dolphins get that magical 2.5-point underdog roll. And I know I said a weeks ago that I would not take the Dolphins plus 2.5 against the spread in straight up fashion. Well, after what I've seen, after what I saw yesterday, and everything that I'm thinking about, I'm going to do it one final time. So I'm going to renege on my word, but renege on my word, and I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins once again plus 2.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Frankfurt, Germany. And I will kick myself to no end if the Chiefs end up winning, which can happen. But I have Miami here plus 2.5, Miami straight up. The next game, when the 4-3 Minnesota Vikings travel to Atlanta to take on the 4-4 Atlanta Falcons. 4-4 Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me the Atlanta Falcons here -4, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-7 Arizona Cardinals travel to Cleveland to take on the 4-3 Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 7.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals plus 7.5. Then the next game, when the 3-5 Los Angeles Rams travel to Green Bay to take on the 2-5 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Green Bay here -2.5 and Green Bay straight up. Though I will have a caveat I will mention when I go deeper into this game that I do want to bring up. But then the next game, when the 3-5 Washington Commanders travel to New England to take on the 2-6 New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are 2.5-point favorites in this game. For my third upset of the weekend, I'm going to take Washington here plus 2.5 and Washington straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-6 Chicago Bears travel to New Orleans to take on the 4-4 New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here -6.5 and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-2 Seattle Seahawks travel to Baltimore to take on the 6-2 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Baltimore Ravens here -5.5 and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Houston to take on the 3-4 Houston Texans, and basically a wild card, weird phenomenon-based game. The Houston Texans are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to, for my last upset of the weekend, so I got 4 dogs winning outright. I'm going to take Tampa Bay here +2.5 and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-5 Indianapolis Colts travel to Carolina to take on the 1-6 Carolina Panthers. The Indianapolis Colts are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Indianapolis here -2.5 and Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-6 New York Giants travel to Las Vegas to take on the 4-4 or 3-5 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Las Vegas here -3.5 and Las Vegas straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-2 Dallas Cowboys travel to Philadelphia to take on the 7-1 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -3 and Philadelphia straight up. And then the next game, when the 5-3 Buffalo Bills travel to Cincinnati to take on the 4-3 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals here, -2, and the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. And then in the Monday night game, when the 3-4 Los Angeles Chargers travel to New York to take on the 4-3 New York Jets, the Los Angeles Chargers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here, -2.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Tennessee Titans over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me give second-round quarterback Will Levis his props. Through the first 7 weeks of the year, the Titans had only 3 passing touchdowns the whole year. Will Levis threw 4 in his debut. He is only the third quarterback in NFL history to have 4 passing touchdowns in a debut game, joining Fran Tarkenton and former Titan quarterback Marcus Mariota as the only quarterbacks to accomplish that feat. And it was such an incredible game because Will Levis had DeAndre Hopkins humming. DeAndre Hopkins, only for the second time in his career, had a 3-touchdown game. And even though one of them, I do have to say, that should have been called offensive pass interference because basically DeAndre Hopkins basically shoved A.J. Terrell 3 or 4 yards back that got him the score in the game. But they just looked really effective offensively, and I really feel like, even though I know Ryan Tannehill is dealing with a legitimate ankle injury, I definitely feel like Will Levis will if he keeps playing this well, will make Ryan Tannehill the definitive backup for the Titans moving forward, and Malik Willis an afterthought, and especially after Malik Willis fumbled the football and didn't have enough athleticism to get it back. That definitely, to me, after the way Will Levis played, and I won't even go this far, I don't believe Malik Willis for his NFL career. I don't even think he'll throw 4 NFL touchdowns for his whole career. That's how little confidence I have in Malik Willis at this point after what I saw of Will Levis. But I thought he played a sensational game. I thought the defense at times of the Titans was a little disappointing. And honestly, if Van Jefferson doesn't drop the ball, they might have lost because the Falcons, through the Ritter and Heineke aspect of the game, was able to start moving the ball effectively. And I thought they had a chance, but thankfully Van Jefferson, there was a reason why the Rams traded Van Jefferson to the Falcons, and it showed its ugly head by that cold drop that ended the game for the Falcons. But the reason why I'm going with the Titans is this Pittsburgh Steelers team right now is not very good, and it's been quite amazing to actually watch the Steelers try to play offensive football. So it's amazing now because the Steelers' home field advantage, Jacksonville, I think they see it as a home or a road advantage because now in the last 7 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 1-6 against the Jaguars at home over their last 7 meetings. That is just amazing, knowing how dominant Pittsburgh usually is as a home team. And one of the biggest issues is the Pittsburgh offense. They only gained 100 total yards of offense through the first half yesterday. And then Kenny Pickett got hurt. And the only reason why they were in the game is that they're second in the league in takeaways. They have 15 takeaways. Unfortunately, they played the Jaguars, who lead the league in takeaways at 18. But that was the big reason why the Steelers were able to stay in the game. I believe the Jags had a fumble at the 3-yard line, another one at the 15, and then Trevor Lawrence threw an interception in a triple coverage that knocked out another drive. If those turnovers didn't happen, they probably would have blown out. They would have probably blown out Pittsburgh about bad they played. And the big reason why I'm going with the Titans is that I don't know if Pickett's going to play. Pickett has a chance, but I think this Titans defense has enough firepower, especially on that defensive line, to make Kenny Pickett have to try to work through the game. And if Big Jeff Simmons, Denico Autry, if any of those Titans players gets a good hit on him, especially over Rudy, they could knock him out. And also, just to be fair, the last rookie quarterback that played the Steelers this year was C.J. Stroud, and he played a very effective game. I do not think Will Levis is going to play as well, but I think Will Levis, with his arm and what I saw at his ability, I think he can make a few more plays with the weapons he has compared to what Trubisky or Pickett can against the Titans defense. And look, I'm going against the grain here. because Mike Tomlin, for his career, is 23-5 all time against true rookie quarterbacks. So, you could say, I might, at the end, going into next week's video, I might come in and say, oh, that's a mea culpa. I should have trusted the numbers and trusted Mike Tomlin at home on a short week. But knowing what I saw, the lack offensively, and seeing what I saw, the juice out of the Titans, and knowing that the Steelers have been outgained by a, significant margin throughout the year, I said it last week, I believe Will Levis and the Titans on a short week have enough offensively and just momentum for the Steelers reeling that they should be able to win. It's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a tough-nosed, grinding, Oilers-Steeler type game. Reminds you of the great clashes in the 70s. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take the Titans here. They have a little bit more offensive talent, a little more confidence, and I'll trust Will Levis to make a few extra plays with his arm that I don't think Trubisky can, and the Titans defense to get one more stop. Or the Titans offense to make one or two more plays to extend drives that I don't think Pittsburgh's can. So that's why I like Tennessee here, plus 2.5, and Tennessee straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Kansas City Chiefs. This is one to where yesterday against the Broncos for Kansas City, a lot of significant things happened. For the first time in 16 games, for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he lost to the Denver Broncos. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he lost a division road game. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he had a game where he committed 3 turnovers and did not score a touchdown. That also broke a 29-game streak for Patrick Mahomes of a passing touchdown. That was the longest active streak in the league. And the Chiefs' offense went up against one of the worst defenses in the league. Though over the past, 4 weeks, they've seemed to play better defense, and Vance Joseph is getting it together. But against the worst defense in the league, holistically, it's amazing that the Chiefs' offense averaged 14 points a game and only scored 1 offensive touchdown against that Broncos defense. That same defense that earlier in the year gave up 70 points and 700 yards against the best quarterback in Andy Reid, they only averaged 14 points a game and only scored 1 offensive touchdown in both games combined. That's amazing. Also, for the Chiefs, the big reason why they lost yesterday was the turnovers. They committed the most turnovers, 5 in a game since Week 11 of the 2018 season, and that was in the game with the shootout against the Rams, which was that epic, 50-point shootout that looked like Big 12 football. And Patrick Mahomes, for the league, he's thrown the second most interceptions in the league this year, which is saying something, because it's definitely showing that they definitely are missing offensive talent outside of Travis Kelce. And unfortunately for Travis, his girlfriend, who I don't even know, apparently he's dating somebody. I don't know who it is. It's a singer, but apparently his girlfriend wasn't there. And again, as they said, he's averaged about 56 yards a game. And he did not have a very effective day. Again, I don't think it was all Travis's fault, but it definitely showed that, there's some phenomenon going on, and it just, when he's not going offensively, the Chiefs can't trust any other offensive weapon around them, I think, to make plays. So, and even though, the Chiefs defense, top 5, second in points, 4th in yards, they have played incredibly well. They got a couple big stops on Russell Wilson on a big 4th down conversion. They got a big turnover in spots, but it's just, you can't win games by just scoring 3 field goals and 9 points. You're not going to get them any that often, and with 5 turnovers. But the reason why I'm going with the Dolphins in this spot is 2 reasons. First of all, I want to shout out Tyreek Hill. He is the first receiver since the merger to have 1,000-plus yards through 8 weeks. He's the 4th wide receiver all time, pre- and post-merger, to make that accomplishment. The Dolphins now are 6-0 with Tua and McDaniel over Belichick, and that is probably the most wins consecutively to start a career against Bill Belichick ever, and it's just downright amazing how consistent they have been in that. Tua's also just been sensational at home. At home this year, 72% completion percentage, 1,203 yards, 12 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. If you take out the one game where he had 2, that means that basically in the 3 games, he's had 1 interception and 9 touchdowns in the one game the Giants game where the 2 tip balls were picks. And I want to shout out Jalen Ramsey, who played his first game of the year after suffering a leg injury, ironically covering Tyreek Hill, which was huge. And Jalen Phillips had sacks in back-to-back games, which was massive. And Christian Wilkins, the very good defensive tackle for the Dolphins, got his first sack of the year, which is a very good sign for the Dolphins. And the reason why I'm going with the Dolphins is that I do not trust this Chiefs defense with Tyreek Hill as motivation, with Waddle, with Anderson, with their running game. I don't think that they can match up defensively if the Dolphins' offensive line can hold. That's going to be the key. The Chiefs' defensive line can get a good amount of pressure stopping their run and getting the 2 on often. I think the Chiefs could win but with the addition of Ramsey and Xavier Howard getting back, I just cannot see how Patrick Mahomes can be able to move the ball effectively if they take out Kelce. Because the other receivers for the Chiefs, outside of Rice, every other game, they're not very good. Sky Moore had a massive drop in the game that could have cut it to a 1-score game at that point. But I am just not sold on this Chiefs offense with the Dolphins defense getting Ramsey back and possibly Xavier Howard back. I just do not think they can win this game in an international neutral site game. If this was in Kansas City, I would have taken Kansas City. If this is in Miami, I probably would have taken Miami. In a neutral site, I think the Miami Dolphins have more talent. They're getting defensive help, and I trust where the Dolphins are psychologically compared to the Chiefs, especially after what's happened. And I do believe Mahomes will be better from the flu, hopefully by next week. But I'm going to take the Dolphins here. Better defensively, more offensive talent, Tyreek Hill's motivation. And if you're just telling me right now, who do I think is going to put up a better game plan, I believe it's Mike McDaniel going against the Chiefs defense compared to Andy trying to go up against that Dolphins defense. So that's what I like Miami here plus 2.5. Miami straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Minnesota Vikings. This is a game to where I am taking the Atlanta Falcons easily because of the injury to Kirk Cousins. As everybody that watched this video, if they don't know, yesterday in the game against the Packers, Kirk Cousins has suffered a torn Achilles, which will knock him out for the rest of the year. And that basically was the reason why I'm taking the Falcons. Look, I want to give Jordan Addison his credit. He's had 4 straight games of a touchdown, and he's probably been the second best rookie wide receiver of his class besides Puka Nacua out in Los Angeles. I think those 2 guys have been the star wide receivers for the Vikings. And I also want to shout out Cam Akers. The Vikings, for the first time in 8 games, scored a rushing touchdown. Cam Akers got the Vikings' first rushing touchdown of the season, so they definitely are missing Dalvin Cook. But to be fair, Dalvin Cook has not really done anything since he's left, especially with the Jets, especially with Aaron Rodgers being down, because Dalvin Cook's become an afterthought. But also here's the crazy thing. The Minnesota Vikings now have objectively won 3 straight games without Justin Jefferson. I didn't expect that. I did not expect for the Minnesota Vikings in that spot without him, especially against some of the competition, maybe the Bears, sure, but the fact you beat the Niners without Justin Jefferson, the fact that you've been able to consistently play without Justin Jefferson tells you that Justin Jefferson, and I this might be a little bit of a hot take, he's maybe not as valuable as maybe people originally thought. I think they're going to pay him well, but it's just a point of order saying, hey, they're 3-0 without him, so it's not like their offense died. Their offense is going to die without Kirk Cousins because, honestly, and the reason why I was moving my mouse around the computer, I want to look this up. If they do not get a quarterback, the Vikings are going to start a BYU kid named Jaron Hall. I didn't even watch Jaron Hall in college. I didn't even think we were first that are watching my video. That's probably the first time you've ever heard of this kid's name. And objectively, if they go with that, and I'll probably still take the Falcons regardless, but there's no way Jaron Hall wins his first NFL start against a good Falcons defense. Though, yeah, I want to shout out Brian Flores real quickly, though. One of the big reasons why the Vikings have been able to win 3 straight games is in 3 of the last 4 games, the Vikings defense has held opponents to under 75 yards rushing, so they are stifling the ground attack, which is making teams one-dimensional. And when you get to play Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, and Tyson Bagent, it seems pretty effective to see, oh, okay, you actually can kind of effectively hold on to the ball and make them one-dimensional. But also, though, when you look at the Falcons, it's a very interesting spot they're in, to where, look, the Falcons defense, that was the most points against Titans they had given up all year at 28. And they also had 2 significant injuries. Grady Jarrett and Drake London both left the game. Unfortunately for Grady Jarrett, he has torn his ACL, which means he is out for the year. And Drake London left the game. I don't think it's a season-ending injury, but he left the game. That's a significant injury. And Desmond Ridder fumbled once again. And apparently he got concussed, which put in Taylor Heineke, who played okay, but didn't do enough to win. And then the 2 very concerning rushing stats were Cordero Patterson for the whole year, probably the second best back entering the year. He's had 80 scrimmage yards all year. And for the Falcons as well, it's been 6 straight games for Bijan Robinson, probably their best offensive weapon on paper. He's had 6 straight games with 15 or fewer touches. They need to give Bijan Robinson the ball. And I objectively believe that the Falcons, if they do that, I think they would have better results, or more effective results, instead of these tough, gritty, awkward games where their quarterbacks look like they can't move the ball offensively and just look inept. And the other reason why I'm taking the Falcons is because Desmond Ridder has only 1 road win, but in 7 home games, he's 6-1 at home. This guy knows how to win home football games. And if you're telling me the Falcons defense, if the Vikings don't make a move, get to play Jaron Hall in his first ever start without Justin Jefferson and lack passing attack, and you just watch Jaron throughout the rest of the game, he looked lost and you just don't know, I'll take the Falcons to win that game. Could the Vikings win? Sure. We don't know how Jaron Hall is. The Falcons don't either. We don't have any tape. And maybe Jaron could play like Levis. Who knows? But in that scenario with the Vikings going on the road without their quarterback, and if they don't sign one, I just think the Falcons win this game easily with a stifling defense and an efficient enough offense that plays better at home to win and beat the Vikings. So that's why I like Atlanta here -4 and Atlanta straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Arizona Cardinals. I will say this. The Arizona Cardinals, again, throughout the year, have been a competitive football team. They were very competitive against the Ravens yesterday. That was basically a 1-score game going late into the third quarter until Geno Stone got the interception on Josh Dobbs. And also, I think that's one of the reasons if the Cardinals didn't commit the turnovers they have, because in 3 of the last 4 games, they've committed at least 2 offensive turnovers. And that's just the issue of these games, to where, you can't keep committing that many turnovers and expect to win games. I do want to shout out for the Cardinals, Dante Stills and Ben Stile. So I don't know if I said those 2 men's name incorrectly, but they both got their first career sacks against the Ravens, so that was a little disappointing, the Ravens' offensive line. But also, the other tough part was, once the Ravens got into the red zone, they were able to pound the ball with Gus the Bus. It was the first game the Cardinals all year had given up 3 rushing touchdowns the whole year. And the reason why you have to go with Arizona is, Jonathan Gannon already said Kyler Murray is out again for next week, and Josh Dobbs probably getting his final start of his probably professional career. He has not played bad in these shown moments. But to me, it's something to where Geno Smith was a competent quarterback, and I felt that, okay, if Deshaun played, that might have been a difference. I don't care if PJ or Deshaun play. They're both better quarterbacks than Joshua Dobbs. PJ Walker threw his first NFL touchdown of the year on a very nice, effective pass, which I was impressed with. And PJ probably played his best overall game. David Njoku had a season-high 77 receiving yards. But essentially, it was weird because for the second time this year in a key fourth-quarter spot, they had a massive turnover which lost them the game. And this is one of those things to where PJ, I didn't think he needed to throw it. And also, by the way, it looked like Jamal Adams headbutted the football, which got it off its trajectory. And it's just one of those things to where, the Browns could have stolen. They could be a 6-1 football team if their quarterbacks in key spots didn't have costly turnovers, which changed the game and field position. But that's what happens. And also, I do want to shout out 6-year pro Maurice Hurst for getting the first interception of his career on a weird deflection. But I am going to take the Browns here because I just trust that defense. It's still the number one defense in yards. The points have kind of gone up a bit, but again, that wasn't really all their fault. It wasn't like they're giving up long drives. But I think the Browns have a better defensive roster. I think they can get Dobbs into many more mistakes, more like Minshew and Purdy. And I think P.J. Walker, with the talent he has, if he has to play with Deshaun, they can make enough plays with the run game and their arm with the receiving weapons they have to outplay the Cardinals in another tough and gritty game. And it'd be pretty massive, too, because Cleveland has lost 6 of its last 7 games against the Cardinals over this series. So it should be an interesting game, and I'm going to take Arizona plus 7.5 because I believe in Arizona to make it competitive. If they can make an 8.5 point spread, as lucky as they were to do that, they definitely can do it against the Cleveland team, who we don't know is going to be a quarterback, and the running game's awkward, and the offensive line's beat up, that I feel like the Cardinals can hang around again and cover at least this spot around. So, but that's why I like Cleveland here straight up at Arizona plus 7.5. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Los Angeles Rams. This is one to where, look, the Rams defense gave up its most points all year, and the last two, the only Ram that plays very well against the Cowboys so far, it seems to be Aaron Donald, because the last 2 times they have played the Cowboys offensive line, Aaron Donald's got 2 sacks in both of those games. But the Rams and Cowboys, the last 2 meetings, it has not even been close. It has been the 2 games that the Rams have played in Dallas the last 2 years. They have lost 65-30. So that shows you how dominant the Cowboys have been against this Rams team through all its turmoil. But the reason why I'm going with the Packers is because of the injury to John Matthew Stafford. John Matthew Stafford, who had a pretty pedestrian game, got into a massive 30-point hole. It didn't help when he threw the pick 6 right to Darren Bland, who leads the league in pick 6, by the way, at 3. He's basically become Diggs of 2 years ago, which is kind of amazing. But it's because John Matthew Stafford hurt his thumb, and it was a pretty significant injury that he tried to push through and was able to get into a touchdown and 2-point conversion afterward. And then after that, once the game got out of hand, he went back to the locker room, and Brett Ripien, son of Bill Ripien, the Super Bowl, son of Mark Ripien, the quarterback for the 1991 Washington Redskins Super Bowl team, and Brett Ripien finished the game. And it's just one of those things to where if Brett Ripien is deemed the starter against the Packers, I think the Packers can win. Even with Jordan Love having 7 interceptions on this 4-game losing streak, the leading rusher for the Packers has only been A.J. Dillon at 266 yards. And if you're going into Brett Ripien, fun fact, everybody, the last time the Los Angeles Rams beat the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau, you have to go back to week 1 of 1988 when the L.A. Rams went into Lambeau and beat the Packers. So, in this game, it's one of those weird ones to where, again, if Matthew Stafford is able to play, I will take the Rams and switch my pick, and I will put that in the pick I think just like I did this past week. But if Matthew Stafford, who I do not think is going to play at this moment, I will take the Packers because I cannot trust Brett Ripien, even with the talent he has, going up against that Packer defense to win a game against a Packers team that's reeling. And I just trust that Jordan Love should be able to make a few more throws and execute decisions better at home compared to Brett Ripien trying to go on the road for his first start in the frozen tundra. So, also shout out to Rashawn Gary for getting his massive 4-year, $107 million extension. So kudos to him for securing the bag, as they say. So that's all I like the Green Bay Packers here, -2.5. The Green Bay Packers straight up. But once again, the Green Bay Packers pick will switch if Matthew Stafford does play. So the next game, the Washington Commanders over the New England Patriots. This is a game to where I'm taking the Washington Commanders based on the fact that I trust the Washington offense to be a little more consistent compared to New England's. Sam Howell, been absolutely sensational against the Eagles this year. He was absolutely sensational. 73% completion percentage, 687 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, that interception was horrible right at the end of last time, but he's been downright phenomenal against the Philadelphia Eagles. Terry McLaurin also scored his 4th touchdown against the Eagles. That's the most against any opponent throughout his career. But the problem for the Commanders has been primarily their defense. They have given up the second most points per game this year, and they've allowed the most passing touchdowns defensively, which is going to be a massive problem. And I'm taking the Commanders because the Patriots, after that huge win over the Bills for Belichick's 300th, you saw the Patriots go right back into the typical Patriots that we've seen most of the year. Bill Belichick now falls to 10-13 all-time in Miami throughout his career as the Patriots head coach. Fun fact, the only other team he has a road losing record against is the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos and Dolphins, every time he goes to Miami or Denver, not a very good look or very good outcome most of the time for that team to go there. And the Patriots still have the second lowest scoring offense in the league. And I think the bigger concern was that Kendrick Bourne, their number one wide receiver, which is the problem, tore his ACL and he is now out for the year. Devontae Parker also left the game with a less serious injury, but he might be out for a while. And even though I do want to give Juju a shout out for getting his first touchdown with the Patriots, but that definitely hasn't worked out. And it just seems like with Mac Jones, especially going up against that Commanders pass rush, if all of them stay, again, I'm doing this video before the deadline, so who knows what talent's going to move where, but I just trust the Commanders to offensively move the ball a bit better. Robinson and Gibson have some opportunities. The Pats are still about Judon and Gonzalez, and Uche is probably their most effective pass rusher. I think JC will do an okay job against McLaurin, but it's just an aspect of where, do I trust Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones with the talent that's going to be out there, or do I trust Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy? And I will take Howell and Bieniemy in this spot because I trust that the Commanders have more dynamic offensive weapons and have shown to be more offensive consistently than I've seen from the Patriots all year. So, should be an interesting game. And look, I'm going against the grain here. The Patriots have won 4 straight games against the Commanders in this series, but I think the Commanders have a little bit of a better offensive push, and I just trust that the Commanders, if they can get Mac Jones turned over, because he's been pretty much prone to have at least 1 to 2 turnovers a game, they should be able to hold on and grind out a tough, gritty win against 2 mediocre teams that are both fighting to, essentially, I feel like whoever loses the game will be in a better position than the one that wins. So, but again, I'm going to take the better offense, the defensive line going against the Patriots' offensive line, and just the ability of saying Sam Howell will make one more player, one fewer mistake than I believe Mac Jones will on Sunday. So, that's why I like Washington here, plus 2.5, and Washington straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Chicago Bears. I am taking the New Orleans Saints here because the New Orleans Saints just have more talent and are playing better than the Bears. The Bears, for the 3rd time this year, gave up 200-plus offensive yards in the first half. This Bears defense is god-awful. It's putrid. It's pathetic. I can't believe that's 3 times they've given up 200 offensive yards and a half. Tyson Bagent, after... And I didn't think Tyson had the worst game, but he threw 2 bad interceptions, so they did get stiffed by the refs from that first play with the Darnell Mooney catch. But the defense let Justin Herbert be perfect in the first quarter. They'd gone on a 24-7 run. And basically after that, the Chargers never looked back. And they're playing the same team that, again, has its flaws. They, were in that game with the Colts for a while and awkward, but Derek Carr threw for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, I thought, was the player of the game. He had 119 scrimmage yards with 2 touchdowns, and Rashid Shaheed had 3 massive catches for 51 yards per catch. He was the explosive playmaker that made huge catches on 3rd and 4th down that basically shifted the game into New Orleans' favor. And it's one of those things as well where after Alvin Kamara scored, fun fact, Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara now has more total touchdowns compared to Christian McCaffrey, 72-71. And the Saints have won 7 straight games against the Bears. This is a game to where, look, the Saints, they have not been great by any means. There's been a lot more bad Saints games and footage that I've watched compared to a lot of good football But from what I've seen out of the Bears, especially knowing that Justin Fields still might not be able to go due to his thumb injury, I do not expect Tyson Bagent to go into the Superdome, a place that it's very hard for rookie quarterbacks to play, and for him to be successful in an environment like that. Do I think the Saints, will they be as effective as they were against the Colts offensively? Maybe not, maybe so. But I just think the Saints, better quarterback, better defensive talent, a young quarterback, Division II quarterback going into his third start, second straight road start, that Superdome environment. I think it's a lot of negative factors. I feel like after what I saw against the Chargers, I think the Saints can have maybe not as efficient a performance, but the same type of dominating performance for the Saints move forward. So that's like the New Orleans Saints here, -6.5, New Orleans Saints straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Seattle Seahawks. This is one to where, look, I'm going to give the Seahawks credit. First of all, I love the old uniforms. Would highly recommend anybody getting a old 90s Seattle Seahawks uniform. Love the colors, love the look. But look, Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks had combined 23 total tackles yesterday. And due to the big interception from Julian Love, former Giants safety, Geno scored his third touchdown within the final minute of a game that is now the most touchdown passes within the final minute over the last 2 years. So Geno is showing that he can be incredibly clutch. And to me, like, this is one of those things where the Seahawks, they're winning games. And they're showing you that they have talent across the board, that even when the Seahawks defense can make some mistakes, and when the Seahawks offense can, make some mistakes as well, because they've had some moments where they've had at least 2 or 3 turnovers in the last couple games, they've been able to effectively find a way to win games. But I do have to say this is one of the big reasons why I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens, is the fact that the Seahawks have given up 141 rushing yards per game over the past 2 games. The Ravens are one of the better running attacks in the league, and Gus Edwards, like I said, had a career high in rushing touchdowns of 3, and the NFL leader in interceptions is amazingly Geno Stone, who has now 5 interceptions, which leads the league. And I also feel like, one of the other key things that's kind of concerning for the Ravens is Justin Tucker. For this year, he's only 25% from 50-plus yard field goals. He is one of the, if not the most accurate 50-plus yard kicker in league history. So that is a bit of a concerning look, even though that 52-yarder was close, just doinked off the upright. But it is surprising that through 8 weeks he has missed 3 50-plus yard field goals. But it's one of those aspects where I'm not going to fall into the trap of what I did with the Lions, where I thought the Lions were clearly the better team. Look, Lamar is 17-1 all time against the NFC. The last time he played Seattle back in 2019, we absolutely rolled them. I don't know if we're going to roll the Seahawks, but I'm just going to say that basically having Seattle come out to the East Coast, even though, again, I've said to you before several times that the Seahawks have had one of the best East Coast records over the past 6 years, and it continues to grow. You lose Cincinnati their last time out. But I just trust that the Ravens at home, coming off the performance they did, where they did not play well, they played sloppily, they gave up a lot of key plays. Lamar only threw for about 157 yards. It was not great. But I just trust that the Ravens defense, as dominant as it is, the inability of the Seahawks to stop the run game over the last couple weeks, and with Lamar's ability to just make some effective throws with the weapons he has, I feel like Lamar outplays Geno, and Harbaugh outmaneuvers Carroll in just key spots with running and just defensive aspects, that I feel like the Ravens win the game, and Lamar outplays Geno to get the win. So that's why I like Baltimore here, -5.5. Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Houston Texans. This is one to where, when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I am taking Tampa Bay based on the fact that Houston was incredibly inept by their standards. Their offense was held to its lowest passing and total yards offensively all year. And Houston, in these NFC South games, have lost 2 of 3 on a game-winning field goal. Younghoe Koo and Eddie Pinheiro made the game-winning field goals to win them the game and lose by 2 points. So that is absolutely brutal. And I also think Tampa gives up a lot of yards, so Houston can move the ball, but they've given up the 6th fewest points all year. And I also believe that I trust Tampa's offense enough for the talent they have, they can score 20 or more points. When they score 20 or more points this year, the Buccaneers are 3-0. When they do not score 20, they are 0-4. So that's what I'm kind of banking on with Baker, with Evans, Chris Godwin, who should have arguably caught the Hail Mary that could have cost that could have gave Tampa a huge victory. But I'm going to trust that Tampa's defense will hold and be more effective in a spot to where I think they'll be able to score over 20 points. I don't really see Houston with the weapons they have being able to be effective. And I just think a Houston offensive line going against a Tampa pass rush should give C.J. Stroud some problems. That could be difficult. So if Houston would have beat Carolina, I probably would have taken Houston. But just the fact that they played Bryce Young and that inept of a Panthers offense gives you enough faith to say, okay, if Bryce Young and that offense can, if that Panthers defense can hold the Texans enough, and I've already seen them play the Falcons and the Saints, I'll take Baker and the Bucs to make a few more plays with the weapons they have that I don't think Houston will be able to respond defensively. And I think Stroud makes one fewer play than Baker to win the game. So that's all I like Tampa Bay here, plus 2.5. Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Carolina Panthers. I am taking the Indianapolis Colts here based on the fact that I wasn't really impressed with the Panthers. In 4 of Bryce Young's 6 starts, they've scored 17 or fewer points. Adam Thielen is their leading receiver at 580 yards, which is just absolutely, kind of amazing for Thielen, but really bad for the Panthers' prospects. And it's really bad that Chuba Hubbard is outplaying Miles Sanders, because Miles Sanders was given a 4-year contract to be the bell cow back for the Panthers. And he's done very little. I know he was hurt one game, so in 6 games, but he's done very little, and Chuba Hubbard's outplaying him. And he's the 3rd or 4th year guy that's basically playing for his job. And, but here's the thing, though. I thought that the Colts, look, I am concerned about the Colts' defense. They've given up 37-plus points in 3 straight games, but their offenses have played pretty well, and they've been just bugabooed by turnovers the last several weeks. And I feel like against the Panthers, who do not get a lot of turnovers themselves, they should be able to win the game based off of that. And look, could the Panthers win? Sure. I think with Bryce Young getting that confidence, getting that monkey off your back in terms of getting a victory, should make them feel good going into, a nice easy stretch here where they have to play the Colts. And I believe they play the Bears week 10 on Thursday Night Football in one of probably the worst Thursday Night Football game of the year so far up to date. But I'm going to take the Colts here because I like what the Colts have done. Jonathan Taylor had his best game of the year, where he had 8 yards per rush and I believe 95 yards rushing. I trust the Colts offensive line to hold up against a damaged Panthers pass rush. And the Panthers secondary isn't that great. And I just trust Zaire Franklin too. Zaire Franklin, even though I think he left the game yesterday, he's the only linebacker this year. He leads the league in combined tackles with 100 combined tackles. No other player defensively has that many tackles combined throughout the year so far. It's just downright impressive that it's through 8 games that he's played that well. But in this game, I'm just going to trust that Steichen and Wright, or Steichen, with his offensive system, with the talent he has, I just think he's going to be able to make a few more plays than what I've seen out of Frank and the Panthers. That I've seen the Colts score at least 20 plus, and if this gets into a shootout, even if the Panthers, even the Colts defense plays like it has over the last couple weeks, I think Gardner Minshew with the weapons around him can outshoot Frank Reich in a weirdly entertaining game that could happen based on just 2 offenses that find a clicking rhythm together. So that's like Indianapolis here minus 2.5, and Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the Las Vegas Raiders over the New York Giants. This is one to where Saquon Barkley had a career-high 36 rushing yards and attempts. And they needed all of that because he had at least 137 more yards than the Giants quarterbacks. The Giants had -9 passing yards, and I believe they had -9 total yards if you had sacks. I believe they had 3 passing yards, or something like 5 or 6 passing yards raw in the game. That was the fewest passing yards the Giants have had since 1933. And the Giants, for Brian Daboll and his coach, offensively, they've been held to 95 points through 8 games. That's the fewest amount of points the Giants have scored in 8 games since 1966. That offense is so dreadful. I guess fortunately for the Giants, Daniel Jones is now cleared for contact, so he should be able to be on track to play on Sunday against the Raiders. But even if Daniel Jones is able to play, well, is Daniel Jones better than Tyrod Taylor? No. It's just Tyrod Taylor is the glass man. He is a glass porcelain figurine, because that has been the biggest problem with Tyrod Taylor is the man can never stay healthy, and the highest over-under you get with Tyrod is 3 games. And Tyrod is just he needs to just retire at this point. The man's got a glass jaw and a weak chin and just the worst injury luck, and he's made a lot of money. He's like a poor man Vince Young. But that's the problem, is that like if you're going to go to Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones looked like Joe Montana compared to what I saw to Tommy DeVito, the bum out of Syracuse and Illinois. He almost beat Michigan last year. Maybe that shows you how bad Michigan was last year. That bum Tommy DeVito was able to almost win that game. Or was able to, so. But that's the thing, though. Like, I just feel like with the Raiders, look, they're coming off a bad game of Brian Hoyer, losing to the Division II quarterback, and they're going to get rolled by the Lions. But Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start, and he's more competent than what Daniel Jones or Tommy DeVito have been able to do throughout their whole careers. I think the key question, though, for the Raiders is Devontae Adams. They have to get him involved. 3 straight games with 60 or fewer receiving yards, which is massive just because it's like they're now losing games, but it's like it's affecting the Raiders' confidence and his psyche for the team. And I'm just going to take the Raiders because also I think they want to end this lie to the Giants. They've lost 4 or 5 games to the Giants overall. And I just think, even though Daniel Jones will be back, I can't trust the Giants' offensive line and system around him. And I do not think Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he's had a pretty turnover-prone year, I think the Raiders' defense can cause a couple more turnovers to even it out. And I think Jimmy outplays Daniel with the weapons and talent advantage they have compared to the Giants, even with Jones back. I think the Raiders' talent will be able to make a few more plays on both sides of the ball than the Giants will, especially at home, for the Raiders. So that's why I like the Las Vegas Raiders here, -3.5, and Las Vegas straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Dallas Cowboys. This is one to where, look, Dak Prescott threw his second highest passing touchdown since Week 17 of the 21 season, where he threw 5 touchdowns, which set his record. I'm going to shout out Darren Bland. 3 pick sixes this year. It leads the league, and he's basically become Trayvon Diggs in terms of how effective and dominant he's been. And CeeDee Lamb had a career high in receiving yards and receptions, 12 receptions for 158 yards, an absolute beast. And the Cowboys have won 11 straight home games now. It's the longest streak since 1991 into the 91 and 92 seasons, but unfortunately, they are playing the Eagles, who the Cowboys have the 18th ranked rush defense, and that is really bad against one of the top 3 or 4 rush teams in the league. And I just feel like with this Eagles game, to where it's just the Eagles and Cowboys. Like, there's just a confidence in the Eagles from what I've seen over the last few years. Jalen Hurts has been phenomenal against the Commanders this year. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. A.J. Brown also 6 games, 125-plus yards receiving. That sets a new NFL record. 6 TDs, no interceptions against the Commanders. 7 TDs, 8 interceptions against everybody else. One thing that was concerning, they did have 2 turnovers within the 5-yard line. That is, the brotherly shove did not work for the Eagles for the first time in forever. And I just think, again, Philadelphia has won 3 of the last 4 home games against the Cowboys. And just knowing this spot, knowing what they did against the Niners. And look, I know the Niners have not nearly looked as good now as they did, that was the Niners' apex, was that game against the Cowboys. And I do not think the Eagles will play that well. But it's just in this moment, I can't trust the Eagles to or I can trust the Eagles to win this game. They've won 3 of the last 4 at home against the Cowboys, and I just think with Dak in these bigger moments against better pass rushes and much more effective secondaries, he seems to be more mistake prone and seems to go into Tony Romo mode to where he'll make some plays and he might make some decisions, but he'll probably make 1 or 2 decisions that are going to be much more costly than what Jalen will. I do think that injury for Jalen is significant with his knee, but I think through his pocket passing and maybe with the lack of secondary with the Cowboys have, I think that he'll make fewer mistakes than Dak and make a few more plays with his arm. And I think the brotherly shove works against the Cowboys because also Micah Parsons just really doesn't do anything against the Eagles anytime anyway. And I'll trust that at home to win. So that's why I like Philadelphia here -3 and Philadelphia straight up. And in the final 2 games, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Buffalo Bills. This is one to where, look, the Bills played the Bucks. Josh Allen now 6-0 on Thursday Night Football. 14 TDs, 6 interceptions. The Bills defense has still allowed the 3rd fewest points, but they still got the 2nd most yards per rush. Where the Bengals, they had a season high in offensive total yards of 400. Joe Burrow also had a career high in completion percentage. Jamar Chase, his 5th game with 10 receptions and 100 yards receiving. That's most with 10 and 100 by any receiver before he turns 25. And besides, Jamar is 23. He won't turn 24 until March after the season ends. And I do also want to shout out Jermaine Pratt for an incredible interception. But it's just one of those things to where, look, this is the first time since January that the Bengals and Bills are playing in that stadium since Damar Hamlin. I think the Bills will be motivated because they'd like to get that energy. But I think the Bengals are just clearly the better team. They're hitting their stride. That Bills defense, even without Hamlin, is not nearly as effective as it was last year. And I just trust the Bengals in this home primetime spot than the Bills. Because when I've seen the Bills in primetime moments, it's been more bad than good in key spots. So I think, this would be a great game. I think the Bills can compete and they could win. But I'll just trust the Bengals at home, playing better defensively, healthier defensively. And I just trust that Joe Burrow is playing at a much higher and consistent level than Josh Allen. So that's why I like the Cincinnati Bengals here -2 and Cincinnati straight up. And lastly, the Los Angeles Chargers over the New York Jets. This is one to where, look, Cameron Dicker, 11-12 on field goals. The Chargers finally have a quality kicker. Justin Herbert has played sensationally. He had a perfect first quarter, essentially a flawless first half. Really didn't do anything in the second half. And the Chargers running game had 54 fewer rushing yards in their last 3 games. That is concerning that they haven't been able to run the ball. But they're playing a Jet team that offensively plays like doo-doo. Plays like absolute dung. Like Thomas Morstead was the MVP of the game. He had 11 punts, but he pinned the Giants 3 times within the 5-yard line. And they were 1 of 14 on 3rd down in regulation. In the entire game, they had 15 third downs. They only made 2 of them. And I just think, again, the Chargers defense, it is not the Giants defense. And the Chargers defense has been able to show some holes. But objectively, I cannot see Zach Wilson playing any better than I did Tyson Bagent. And the Jets have lost 4 straight overall against the Chargers. And I just feel like, again, if the Chargers, I will tell you this, all the Chargers need to do is put up 15. I'm being dead serious. I think that Charger defense, for as many flaws as it's had, I think they only need to put up 15 points and they win. 15 points. Because I cannot trust this Jets offense without any turnover, touchdowns, or mistakes. If they get into a close game, Justin Herbert, again, like I said last week, leads the league with 4th quarter interceptions at 17. I just cannot see the Chargers losing this game against the Jets, knowing what I know on the defensive side of the ball, and knowing that the Chargers can score points. I think the Chargers, all they would have to do is put up 15, and they win. And if they put up more than that, then I think the Jets are in trouble, because I cannot see the Jets at all trying to win a shootout with Nat Hackett and Zach Wilson at the helm. So I just can't, and that's why I like the Los Angeles Chargers, -2.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And that is it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to go see people like Half Moon's Picks, Geo Knows, Andrew Warren, Logan Schiff, Fire and Brim Sports, Sports Fan Entertainment, Bridgewater's Finest. Check out all those picks from guys and gals who make predictions like I do. And until next week for my Week 10 predictions, good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.